Warning, this podcast typically features spoilers and strong opinions. Proceed with caution. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Then a Moment, the podcast where two lifelong storytellers talk about stories. I'm Pavi Proczko, audiobook narrator, author, etc.
I'm Colin Funk, childhood development expert and teaching artist.
And today we're going to be talking about Dix the Musical.
I almost forgot what we were talking about for a second.
This is a doozy, y'all. But before we do that, we're going to get to our moment of the week. Yeah, moment of the week. I'll go first. I just completed an audiobook project.
Okay.
That I narrated. Mm-hmm. And it's my big series. And
which one is this in the series?
This is number 11, Defiance of the Fall 11. Find it on Audible. And there's they do this. The author does this interesting. I've thought about for a long time about like what makes the series so popular, because it's book 11 and there's got to be more. There's not much that has that kind of staying power. And there's something about it's very like Dragon Ball Z in how it just like sits in certain challenges. So it's that episodic nature of like, well, now we have this, it's lit RPG cultivation fantasy, and so there's a lot of progression elements. So there's a lot of, establishing a goal that they're going to, and then you watch the character get to the goal.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really smart strategy to like get people coming back, because
clearly people like it.
Obviously,
right?
Yeah, they are coming back. I thought it was just interesting that in like it's the structure of the books don't follow it's not particularly traditional structure.
Okay.
So you don't have like the nice arc and like a development in the same way that you might in some kind of drama, where it's almost, this is written in serial, so it's been kind of like chopped up by word count almost. And loosely in like event. But it's mostly like, well, we've got this many words and we're kind of at the end of like one storyline and we're like picking up into another one to like cliffhanger us into it. And there's something really effective about that. And there's just a moment where kind of the story, each one of these, the story kind of ends and then there's like more book.
Okay.
Where I'm like, oh, that was kind of the end of the story. And now we're coming into like more story because they want that cliffhanger without actually having like a cliffhanger that's been designed.
Interesting. Well, yeah.
So in this case, everything is like he's broken through to the next level, and then he decides to like make a complete right turn and goes to this other challenge that he's supposed to do. He goes to do that challenge, and it was just kind of there's a simultaneous like stutter and a halting of momentum, as well as there's just some interest in it because they do drop the breadcrumbs of it earlier. So you're like, oh, they are going to go do that thing. Okay. So then he goes to do that thing, even though it's like, well, we're actually going to take a right turn here. It's interesting how it works, and that like, I don't know, it's something it's like simultaneously bothers me about the storytelling and also keeps it interesting. It keeps it
it feels like
moving.
It sounds like a little bit like what they do on The Circle. Where
they
don't end. It's not like elimination, end of episode.
Right.
It's like there's always like they get to the end of something and then something new starts.
Right.
Whether that be, they do a challenge and we don't see who gets eliminated until the beginning of the next episode, or somebody gets eliminated, then something happens and we're like, oh, what's going to happen? We start a new storyline.
Yeah.
So it's like you're sitting there watching The Circle and you
don't even realize that you're in the next episode.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really similar to that feel. Of course, they're like longer chunks. It's like, a 200,000 word book, but
not originally.
Not originally.
So
originally, it was just
written in
ongoing.
serial, that makes sense. That's a good way to get people to continue reading, is even if you are arbitrarily breaking things up, is to not make it feel as complete of a story in the confines of the of like, this is this chapter or this is this book. If you're giving, cliffhangers, I mean, people doing cliffhangers for years, but if you make everything feel like, if you're ending where it's not a complete ending, it's not like a final cadence, it's like a imperfect cadence. It feels like there's more, so you want to keep reading more.
Right. Yeah. So that was my interesting moment. Where like moves on to this other challenge right after the story's over.
Very interesting.
What about you?
Well, we've started the new season of Rick and Morty. And we were both a little skeptical at first, I think, because there's a new voice actor. I don't even know. There might be two. I don't even know.
Yeah, not sure.
But the guy who played both Rick and Morty is now not part of Rick and Morty anymore.
Right.
And he was kind of like co-creator, right? Co-creator, co-writer. So a big part of it. And so not only are the two main characters' voices a different person, but now somebody who doesn't have the same improv skills or the same humor or the same writing skills, who knows, is going to be part of the team. So I was prepped for it to feel different. And I don't think, so far it feels pretty, they're keeping it on track. Like the guy who's doing the voices, or guys or people, I don't know.
Yeah, who knows?
I should look that up, but whoever's doing the voices now, I was surprised that it was probably like a third of the first episode in when I was like, wait a minute, isn't this the episode that
isn't supposed to be new people?
Voice actor?
Yeah. And I was listening for it, and I assumed while we were watching that I was like, oh, maybe this is like an episode or two that is like he's still they kept him on, or they had recorded these earlier,
right.
And we waited for the credits, and it was not there.
It's not right. So it surprised me, and it was good. But to pick a moment in the episode, this most recent episode, Rick and Jerry. This is actually kind of connected to Dix, but they they swap minds. Yeah. And then it ends up they get them mixed up. So now they're like they're both half and half of each other. Yeah. Instead of swapping, because Rick's plan was to put each other's minds in each other's brains without changing who they were. Right. It like didn't quite work out the way he thought, and they were both half of each other. Yeah. And or maybe it did work out at first, and then it was their minds didn't mesh with the bodies. Like putting Rick in Jerry's body like made him go bonkers. Right. Killed himself. Oh my God. And then his garage had to fix them. Yeah. And like didn't fix it quite right because there's like brains everywhere. Right. So it could have just been that. But like so they're enmeshed together. Right. They have each of them are half and half of each other, but they both think they're Rick. Yeah. They both think they're the positive parts of both of them. Right. Which is very funny. It's a good concept. And it equalizes into like someone who's like a little bit better than both of them, but still somehow like weirdly neglectful of the family, and it's weird. Yeah, it's because there's a moment where they're sitting down and they're about to like switch themselves back, and they're like, I don't know, like we're so happy to go back to the way it was, but I feel a little bit easier. Like Rick doesn't have as much mental pressure that he puts on himself, and Jerry just having a little bit more cognitive awareness of the world around him is just having a better time anyway. And you can tell that they don't want to do it. Yeah. And they're both enjoying this like mix of personalities that they have. And so they ultimately choose not to switch back. And it's really interesting because you're like, oh, they're better versions of themselves. They do, but they still end up kind of neglecting their family, like you said, and they end up like completely mushing their bodies together at the end.
Oh yeah,
and becoming like just one being.
Yeah,
and their families have to. He's like, I'm perfect, and I am alone, and
oh my god,
then he like
accidentally steps on a rake
in the
and it like
and
throws just makes them go haywire.
Yeah, and they're like, we're still in there. We want to get out of here, kind of. And it's just like very interesting. They do this all the time where it's like the being perfect doesn't make you perfect. Like you can't. The closer you get to perfect, the more problems come out. You know, and I think that kind of dichotomy and those two moments together.
Yeah,
are really my moment.
I like that show. We'll have to do some work on that, I think.
Yeah, I'm wondering.
It's interesting.
I'm going to keep an eye on it because it does, like, the tone feels maybe slightly different.
Yeah,
but
maybe, but we'll see.
I'm reserving judgment.
Yeah, great. Well, let's get to it, shall we?
Great.
Dix the Musical.
Dix the Musical.
So we're going to do something a little different today, and we're going to tag team this synopsis a little bit. We're just going to see how this works. This was a doozy.
Yeah, you said that.
I did. I'm saying it again. Emphasis. So we start with two dicks, as in jerks.
Yes.
Trevor and I don't remember his name. Craig. Yes. Trevor and Craig, and they are like salespeople, and they are the top of their branches that get.
They're
merged.
Straight guys.
Oh yeah, straight guys, right? Yeah,
they're straight guys.
Very important.
Yes, very integral to the story. They're straight guys who are both at the top of their work, and they're both parts of. They're different branches of the same company, and they're merging.
Yes, and so they like meet.
And the twist is this, and it's not a twist because the premise of the movie is that it is a Parent Trap story.
Right. So they are twins, identical twins, separated at birth. They're obviously not identical. And there's a lot of, poking fun at that. There's a lot of kind of self-awareness in the film regarding that. But they are identical twins, and they decide that they are, very lonely, and
they wish they had the family that they've always wanted. And so they hatch a plan
to get their parents back together. Their
Classic Parent Trap.
Yes, parents being Nathan Lane and Megan Mullally.
Yes, and the problem with that is Megan Mullally is
out of her mind,
and
Nathan Lane is gay.
But also because that's not even the problem.
That's not even the problem. No,
because the problem with their family and why they didn't work out was because Nathan Lane has
sewer boys, which was I wasn't sure what that was going to be. I thought it was going to be like a weird gay thing. And then it ended up being actual little sewer monsters.
Yes.
That he feeds ham to.
Yes.
From his mouth. So they try to get their parents back together. And
they essentially trick them to go to a restaurant.
And they like reunite. But
because they're so lonely, the parents, that and by lonely, I mean horny. They're just way overly horny. And they end up doing it at the restaurant.
Right.
And deciding to get back together, but not to get married.
Remarried, right.
Which makes Craig and Trevor sad.
Very sad. And they quit, and they're mad about it. And then they get kidnapped by their parents after it's been a month, and they're like so worried, and they're like, I'm worried about the boys. And so they kidnap the boys to kind of like tell them, no, it's all going to be good. And the sewer boys run away, and they all have to go chase the sewer boys with Nathan Lane. And they realize that as they're like working together as a family, that they have the thing that they always wanted, and then they leave the sewer boys in the sewers with their parents.
It would look like it's still a family.
It's still a family, and then the Trevor and Craig, the identical twins, move in together and then fall in love and get married.
And God officiates their wedding.
God officiates the wedding, and God is gay.
Yes.
Played by Bowen Yang. The end.
Right?
Yeah, I think so. I think that was about it. Yeah. There's like a flying vagina in there too. We might need another disclaimer for this one too. Jeez.
I know. Well, that's okay. So number one, this, not only was it like extreme, the movie, and it's clearly absurdist, you know?
Right. Totally.
Completely absurdist. But it's also it's like raunchy and without being, I mean, it's hard to.
I mean, I think I was prepared to hear Megan Mullally say pussy a lot of times. I don't think I was prepared to hear Nathan Lane.
Well, yeah, the thing is that they had Nathan Lane playing a gay man who is a gay man who also is attracted to women, but not, I mean, they never say bisexual, which, you know, however you want to identify is fine.
Right,
it doesn't matter.
There's some jokes in there about that too. There's like a lot of really tiny, subtle things.
I mean, it's packed with jokes.
It really is.
I mean, okay. So this story was originally performed by Aaron Jackson and Josh Sharp are the two main characters.
Yeah.
But they also wrote the show.
Yeah.
Because it was based off of a comedy show that they used to do in the basement of a grocery store. I think for UCB in New York. And they were doing this 2-person show, and it ended up being this movie, and they swung really big and were like, we'll ask these really famous people to be in it. And everyone said yes.
Which is wild.
And so it's this, having that context, I think is helpful.
It makes a lot more sense afterward. Like it's, even at the end of the movie, they have this like little thing at the end of the credits where you actually see the a little bit of the sketch show with them. And I'm like, that clarifies some things.
Yeah. I mean, literally 3 seconds. And I was like, oh. This was,
I get it.
We went in not knowing anything about it.
I knew nothing.
Except for Megan Mullally and Nathan Lane. That's all I knew.
I knew they were in it, and that was it. And Megan Thee Stallion.
I might have known that at some point.
I think I knew that. Yeah.
But I did not remember it. But yes, the whole show is essentially a sketch that has been stretched out.
Yeah.
Quite a bit.
Yeah. This sketch gives it more context.
Yes, that it is from a sketch. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And if we're looking at this as a sketch or a series of sketches even, how does that affect the storytelling to you?
That is complicated. It makes it make more sense what kind of is going on, that each individual part is a little bit separate from the others. I think I generally take issue with movies that do that, where it feels like it's a series of sketches that are strung along onto one storyline, because it inevitably never really feels that cohesive. Dare I say, even something like Bridesmaids sometimes can feel that way too.
Oh, wow.
I know. And I love it. I think Bridesmaids is good, but sometimes there's like an element, there's an element of like, there's this collection of, sketches that kind of get mushed together with a through line. I think Bridesmaids does it pretty well. It's a good example of like, this is kind of how you can make this work. But something like Trainwreck, which I also liked, the Amy Schumer movie, Trainwreck does the same thing, where it's like each of these individual parts, they feel like an Amy Schumer sketch.
Sure.
As opposed to being kind of like a story that like each scene ties into everything else. And I think that's something I usually look for, I think, probably when I'm consuming a story. I want to see how the beginning kind of like ties into the other stuff. And when you're doing these separate sketches, it feels like it's unrelated. Even if like big picture it might be, we're seeing them be dicks. We're seeing them, have sex with a bunch of these beautiful women. We're seeing them be assholes to their coworkers. We're seeing things about their personality that we're going to see change. But the event itself, there's no parallel. There's no mirroring and reflection between even the events of the movie.
The thing is, to your point, they set it up as Dicks the Musical, and that they are they start as these assholes and womanizing, and that it would make sense if that continued to be the problem that needed to be fixed.
Right.
But once they meet each other and find out that they're twins, that problem doesn't seem to go away, like that, or that
it doesn't seem to matter anymore. Yeah,
right. It doesn't seem like them getting their family together isn't solving the problem of them being dicks.
Right.
So it's just like curious why they called it Dicks the Musical.
Right, and it's like they never quite change either. But it's that, as you say, there's no resolution to that issue. There's not even a deciding that it's okay that we're dicks. It's just that it wasn't the problem.
Right. I mean, it seems like we don't even find out the problem until they're singing, until they meet and sing. And then it's like, it feels like the actual important exposition and inciting incident happen in one song.
Right. And everything before that is kind of nothing. It's not necessary. It's setting up how they get to be there.
Right.
But it is not an internal problem for these characters that they are bad people.
Yes. I think this is not a story-driven movie.
No, of course not. It'll be obvious when you see it.
Yes, of course. I don't know if sketch forward or even joke forward would be maybe more appropriate, because honestly, it feels like they've created this as a source to like joke from, or like it feels like, because I watched some interviews with them, and they're very funny people. Mm-hmm. Both of them are very funny, very quick with jokes, very witty, but like you can tell that they're like, this thing is funny. They love this element. They love this piece of it. They love each part of it. And it's almost like surrealist. It's like Dadaist. It's we're not looking at a painting that's supposed to reflect not just reality. It's not realism. It's not impressionism. We're not like looking at weird swirls and shapes of different pieces of different realities at the same time. Even like it feels, it's a different art form. It's not
film in the traditional sense. It's not storytelling in the traditional sense. It's like using, as you say, the story is kind of like the tree or the skeleton on which we hang the ornaments of the jokes.
Yeah.
And it's the fact that it's shaped weird doesn't matter.
And the thing is, like, they do use a very classic structure. I mean, Parent Trap structure is...
Mm-hmm. And it has musical structure. It's a musical, so there's singing, and they do...
Even that, though, they were like... one joke they made in an interview... they're like, it's one of the classic structures, you know, there's Romeo and Juliet, there's this, and there's the Parent Trap. Like, it was like it's very fun. They are taking these elements that are very funny on their own.
Yeah.
And they're creating a mythology around it almost.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to talk about because it's hard for me to like resonate with it as a full piece.
Yeah.
Like when I think about it as a full movie, I'm like, I'm not sure what that was.
Yeah. I agree. It's like, I guess going back to the sketch thing, these kinds of loose storylines make more sense on a stage when you're able to kind of suspend a lot of the disbelief.
Right.
Whereas,
Well, that happens often in sketch. And
yeah,
in improv.
it's like there is a storyline here, and it's like you can kind of imagine how these pieces are in the same world, even if they're like a little outside of the world or each in their own genre, and then it all does kind of come together somehow. That's very like classic Second City and other sketch, but it's this because we're actually film has a disadvantage in that realm.
Yes,
we are in a you're trying to show me a cohesive world. And then you're kind of putting these sketches in this cohesive world, and there's that dissonance in a way that on stage we can make the connection ourselves and loosely connect those things. Whereas here you're explicitly showing us how it's supposed to be one line, and it doesn't feel like it.
Right. Well, maybe it's almost what they did with Cats. Where they like almost put too much story into it.
Right. Yeah.
Where it's not, because we could talk about Cats.
We could talk about Cats.
Because
yeah, the movie
I am not as mad of the movie as a lot of people are.
Yeah, same. But in that movie, what the mistake was, I feel...
I've always liked the musical, and because the musical is just sketches about cats.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
And it's just silliness. There's so many quotes of like people being like, oh man, I get it. It's about this. And Andrew Lloyd Webber's like, it's about cats, man.
Yeah.
It's about cats.
It's about poems about cats.
Like, oh yeah, it's about society and class systems, right? It's like,
nah, it's about cats.
It's just cats. Of course, like, but that's how art lets you see the things you want to see or you need to see. That's what art is for. So there's value to something that is just
there for the sake of being there.
But but just like the movie of Cats, they tried to put in a linear story structure to pull it through together in a way that I don't think it needed it.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if it was almost like was this almost not absurd enough?
Yeah, that's how I think I ended up feeling, that it was like they needed to be just a bit sillier and a bit more out there.
Yeah.
And it really just didn't, I mean, despite there being a flying vagina, despite there being like, the best parts were those things. The best parts were she takes her vagina out of her person, it flies and defeats
because it
had fallen off. Yes, that's like part of the story. It had fell off, and then when they reveal the sewer boys, I mean, it's like these moments where you're like, oh my god, that's insane.
Can I talk about the sewer boys for a second?
Yes, let's talk about the sewer boys.
We could talk about it for a long time, I guess. But in doing research for this movie, because I was. Since watching it, not before, because I am,
which was last night, by the way, so it's not been that long.
I've done a lot of research, not really. I've watched a couple of YouTube videos, but I am always an adamant. That's why we add the spoiler alert at the beginning of this, because I don't like spoilers. I love going into things completely blank.
Yeah.
And when I was watching some videos about the movie, they were going on late night talk shows and bringing the sewer boys with them. Like Nathan Lane brought them with him, and they talk about the sewer boys a lot in a lot of these different videos, and I'm like, that reveal was one of the best parts of the movie.
Yeah.
And if I was expecting it
would have ruined it. That made the movie for me.
Because what happens in the movie, like it's in a song about how like Nathan Lane is coming out.
Yes, he's gay. He's really just gay.
He's gay.
And life is queer. And it's nice for a queer person. And
yeah, and because I could do this, maybe I'll go to the symphony, or maybe a show, or maybe I'll just stay home with my sewer boys anyway. And he moves on, and we're like, sewer boys.
Sewer boys.
And it was fun because that's a well-crafted moment, because I'm like, wait, did he just say sewer boys?
Said sewer boys?
I wonder if that's like they're like making some gay reference.
Right.
Because, gay people have their own lingo. And these are, this is...
Or it's like a toilet boy is like into golden showers.
Yeah,
there's like something like that. It's like, oh, my sewer boys. Right. It sounds kinky. And I was like, wait, what is it?
Which, so like, in fact, it is like, it is odd that it piques my interest, but not enough to hold it, because I was like, we'll find out what the sewer boys are, like, who they are. Maybe we'll like see some like chorus boys that are like,
yeah, that's what I was expecting. There's always like dancers in the background of this movie too. There's like one dancer that just like goes past the background. So I was kind of expecting that it would be like, there'd be like two sewer boys. And boy, were there.
There were
because like, then he like reveals, just like pulls down the blanket, and there's a cage with these horrible monsters, horrifying monster puppets, horrifying monster puppets in there.
They are horrifying. And we were both like, whoa, whoa.
We're the only people in.
Oh yeah,
in the theater too. We're like, oh no. Oh my God, what is that? And that was the
shocking.
best. That was the best reveal of the film.
The best. I mean, it was ridiculous.
And how disappointing if I had seen.
Right. And so I think that is, I just cannot believe that those, like the movie makers would want to reveal something like that when they have such a great reveal in the movie.
Right.
It is such a good moment that really plays into the absurdism.
Yeah.
It really just like throws you for a loop.
Yeah. I mean, just the fact that you have like, what would be the strategy? Like, what else do they have going for them in this movie? You know, it's like, really, it is like, well, there's going to be Megan Mullally and Nathan Lane improvising together about this like really raunchy topic.
Yes.
That could probably be enough, honestly. Just do that. And then when it's topped by these sewer boys.
A few times.
I
mean, like that moment where we reveal them. And then, of course, like he's screaming about it. It's like, no.
Oh my God.
It was just very funny.
It was very funny.
Because it
was shocking.
But then he goes on, you already mentioned it.
I did.
But like, it is so ridiculous. I mean, this moment will stick in my brain forever.
Oh my God.
And they show a clip of them making it at the end.
Yes, they do.
So definitely stick around. This was one to like stick
around to the end of the credits.
To the end of the credits, because the clips are gold, of Nathan Lane chewing up deli meat from a Ziploc bag, chewing it up, and like projectile spitting into the mouths of these puppets from like a good like 6 inches
yes,
away.
He just like chews, and he spits like forcefully. Forceful spit, not just like
he doesn't
dropping
like
it.
Like it's not like a bird. Like you think it's gonna be like
spits into their faces, and I'm like, Nathan Lane is chewing bologna and spitting it at these puppets right now.
Yeah,
Timon is chewing and spitting. Wow. It's
crazy. And Nathan Lane was saying in interviews, I've done some crazy things. This is the craziest movie I've ever been in.
Yeah.
And it's pretty wild.
It's pretty wild. Even in oh my God, it's just, surprise, I'm in this movie.
Yes.
Oh my God. And that's truly like, that is how that whole movie feels. Surprise, I'm in this movie.
Yeah.
Man.
I mean, Megan Thee Stallion. Let's talk about this big star.
Yeah,
We're talking about surprise, I'm in this movie.
Yeah.
I mean, Nathan Lane, Megan Mullally.
Great.
Huge names of stage and screen. Like they're both Broadway legends and movie legends.
And TV legends.
TV legends. And, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I don't remember Nathan Lane being in anything.
Only Murders in the Building?
Oh my God, he's in Only Murders in the Building. And he's terrifying too.
That's like new.
Yeah. Yeah, Nathan Lane,
Are you kidding
Megan
me?
Mullally,
He's excellent. He's so
of
good
screen, stage, TV, etc.
Yeah. Very good.
Yeah.
Very good people. Megan Thee Stallion, a famous now contemporary musician, rapper.
Yeah.
Like she's not like washed up. She's not a has-been.
Right.
She's like
she's like right now, big deal.
Yeah. And she agreed to do this ridiculous movie, which I love. Honestly, like Megan Thee Stallion, like Megan Mullally, I get.
That's kind of her wheelhouse.
It felt like we're getting to see, Gail from Bob's Burgers come to life as a person, and 20 years later, it
without
follows,
the PG
sense.
rating,
right.
Yeah.
I don't know. Gail gets pretty.
Gail does get
raunchy.
pretty raunchy. Yeah. Oh, Gail.
But I'm like, oh wow, Megan Mullally brings a lot to Gail.
Yeah. And even Nathan Lane, he's a bit silly.
He's done a lot of comedy, both musical comedy. Like, it makes sense for them. Like, it's a little absurd, it's a little out of the box, but it's not out of the realm of maybe what I'd see them do.
Yeah.
But Megan Thee Stallion,
it's like,
and that they wrote a full rap for her to do.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna say that is the best song in the movie.
I agree.
But hands down.
I think she looks great. It's danced great. The song itself is really good. The only time I
cared about choreography the whole movie
was then.
That movie, that clip on its own, it's worth the movie.
Yeah, it's good.
To Out Alpha the Alpha, like that song. Just like her being a boss. And she is...
good.
She is good. She sounds great. She's rapping. Like, some of the lyrics, I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Scrooge motherfucker McDuck. Like, it was... I was like, surprised.
Oh, it's good. Yeah.
And she's like sexy and she's dancing and like killing it.
Yeah.
She kills it. I mean, she gets the memo and does the thing, and she brings like a groundedness and a reality to that scene that is almost missing in other places.
Right. Which is, speaks a little bit to kind of the kind of disjointedness of the movie too, where it's like, it like wasn't absurd enough even at that point too, well, even though it was like the best part.
I think, okay, I'm wondering if part of the reason the absurdism doesn't land is because we're missing a lot of grounded in reality anything.
Yeah.
Like,
because you do need a little bit of something to hold on to so that the absurdity actually matters.
Right.
Like, I think about like Pinter plays, like the birthday party. It's like, it feels like a normal birthday party until it goes off the rails.
Yeah.
It's like really weird by the end, but it has to start really mundane.
Right.
And this does not.
I just like, but there can be a lot of comedy in finding groundedness in a movie this absurd. And I think that there was some missed opportunities just overall. There was only a couple moments that I even thought it was happening. Yeah. And not the whole cast at the same time. Yeah. Like, I honestly think Megan Thee Stallion in her song, I was like, yeah, she's pissed and she's taking charge, and she's taking this seriously. I mean, we talk about comedy being like the B. Arthur School of Comedy. Yes. That quote, like, being
deadly serious. Dead serious. I'm serious about this.
So serious.
She's so serious.
She's so serious.
And in the rest of the songs, they're not really.
They're not really that serious.
It's a little bit tongue in cheek.
Winks. Like, they give themselves away.
Yeah, and I think that speaks to another problem I have even with the comedy itself, where they kind of seem to take turns being, or not even take turns, they're just like going in and out of the role of being like the clown and the straight man, depending on what scene they're in. Okay. Both of them. And like, at first, like at the beginning, it opens up and it's totally silly. Yeah. And they're totally out of,
it's just ridiculous. Yeah,
it's just ridiculous. They're not grounded in anything.
Very silly, very fun.
Then when they see they go to like meet their opposite parent to like convince them to get together again, then suddenly they're in the position of being the observer watching someone be weird. When I'm like, you just did a ton of weird shit just now.
Yeah, but
you were so weird.
That was setting the basis.
Right. But then it just didn't feel like it would, it didn't feel genuine to then have what's his name be like, what are you talking, like a very like Jim from The Office, where he's like, what's happening? I'm the only normal person here in the room and everyone else is crazy. It's like, no, it is one-upping you, but it actually makes it hard for Nathan Lane to really one up you unless your basis stays there. They drop down to a different energy level.
Right.
And so then their jokes end up being like, oh my God, that's so weird. What are you talking about? That's weird. And they are going in and out of reality. And so it doesn't, it's part of the cohesion problem. It's part of that line problem that I had.
The thing is, like, I don't even mind lack of cohesion, I guess. Like, because I guess I'm not even mad that there is lack of cohesion.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily seeing that as the problem, but it is a problem because they don't do it well.
Yeah. Right. So that might be what it is.
Cohesive.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of like more absurd things that like really feel like they work.
Yeah.
Stuff like, I don't know, like Rocky Horror Picture Show like comes to mind, where it's absurd, but each of the characters is pretty grounded in their own realities.
Yeah.
They're different realities.
Right.
And each song feels very different from each song. And you feel like you're jumping from thing to thing, but something works and something clicks, and maybe, I guess if we're looking at cohesion, there has to be something cohesive throughout the whole, like, and I'm not sure what that element, like, it doesn't have to be, there isn't one thing that has to be cohesive from movie to movie.
Right.
But
right. There needs to be some kind of something we can latch onto, as we said. But I think that's a good point you're bringing up. And would a movie work even if there wasn't cohesion in a story or in their character representations? Like, does it work that sometimes the shots that they kept were them breaking character and laughing at what was happening? Nathan Lane comes in with his cape and is like, does this cape look good? And they laugh at it.
Laughing.
It's just the actors laughing.
Yeah.
And it's funny.
And they spoke to that.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering the value of taking something. I've seen lots of underground theater, nonsense, ridiculous, fun, terrible, a mix of everything in different venues and different places and different times of my life. And there's absolutely a value, especially if you're doing a live show. Mm-hmm. And they clearly are looking to preserve some of the feeling that this is live, this is breathing, this is real. Yeah. They do that a few different ways. They leave in some of the breaking. Mm-hmm. They do that when they some of the singing's live. I don't know if all of it's live, but some of it is clearly live. They do it by pulling the jokes and for adding the clips at the end of them making it. Yeah. They want you to feel like you're in the room as it's happening. Because there's something magical about shows like this that are absurd and off the wall when you're in person. Yeah. Something really magical. I'm wondering, we also have to look at the bigger picture of what this movie is. And that is one of the only movies made during the strike.
I was going to mention, so that's interesting.
So A24, they pick up this show, and it's also, we're a post-pandemic, sure. Who knows what we're calling it these days. But we're not lockdown. We're a post-lockdown world. Yeah. We experience lockdown, and it really hurt live theater just overall. Yeah. There's not as many people, I guess I'd have to look at the numbers, but looking at the theaters that are closing in Chicago, there's not as many people going to live shows. Right. At least live theater shows. They might be going to other live shows because things like the Taylor Swift concerts doing very well. And so people clearly are wanting for live theater. Yeah. And this kind of absurd comedy that really thrives in a basement or in a black box theater where you're throwing on cheap wigs and you're doing silly voices and you're just packing it with jokes. we want it. We want to feel that. We want to, and clearly the movie makers were like, let's take a piece of that magic and see if we can do it.
Yeah.
And they do it by getting brilliant improvisers.
Yeah. That can make them break.
Leaving moments. I mean, I would have watched Megan Mullally pointing out a trinket on her wall and trying to describe where it is on the wall for forever,
Oh my
for
God.
days and days and days. I mean, it was so good, the interaction. Like when that, I wish there were more moments where like it dropped in and I could feel real interaction happening between people. That's part of how I get connected in these things that are way extreme and absurdist.
You need to actually feel like they are having an experience that you can witness.
Right. But you can also tell that they want this to be bigger than the movie itself.
Yeah.
They want the phenomenon and the jokes and the pieces of it to live kind of separately and like live in their own worlds. I mean, one example is they start the movie with just this disclaimer.
Oh yes.
It starts like this is written by
two homosexuals.
Two gay men. These are the first gay men to ever write anything.
Yeah.
I mean, very like a funny joke.
Yeah.
They have jokes. They have very funny joke, very funny concept, and
they're bravely
portraying they're the lead, but they're
men.
bravely portraying heterosexual men, and they repeat it like 3 times.
Which is very brave.
And those are things they bring up at every interview because they're funny joke, and they like make you. It did get me in a fun mood. It started me off. I get the joke. I'm in on it. Like they're telling gay people or straight people that they're brave to play gay people,
right?
And they're winning Oscars for it. And so of course, like going into a movie, they're making this movie. This is the first movie they're making, and they're like, we're gay people bravely playing straight people.
Right.
It's a funny concept that transcends the movie itself.
Yeah.
And they throw in lots of jokes like that and lots of, I mean,
I think that's a good
story. Look, the Parent Trap story ends, I don't know, 3/4 of the way through.
Yeah.
Like they get reunited and the family is like happy, and then it's just a completely different story after that. Just a completely, like maybe going back to the original like
sketch
dicks that they're like maybe we're now back in the world where they're gay people playing straight people, and like we're hyper aware of that because then the two twin brothers move in together and realize they're in love with each other and have a lot of sex together. It's very, very
spit at each other. Oh my God.
That
was insane.
Was ridiculous.
Oh my God.
I mean, it's absurd.
It's really crazy. It's silly.
And it almost like, because I am generally skeptical on gratuitous violence and gratuitous sex and gratuitous disgusting things, like anything like that, like were used for shock value. And for some reason I was like, I need either more
or less.
But that scene, I'm like, there you go. There's like,
that was
because like this is also clearly, speaking of films that are bigger than the movie itself, like the phenomena. It's clearly a movie made for queer people.
Yeah,
and it is touching on things like the gay people playing straight and being macho and like pretend, like it's like jokes that's like this is going to be funny to gay people. It's not going to be funny necessarily to straight people. And like the homoerotic undertones, I mean overtone, like they're not undertones.
Yeah, they're overtones for sure.
And that I watched the beginning and I'm like, okay, they're gay people playing straight, but that means like gay stuff is going to happen, right?
Yeah, right. It's like they've prepared you for it. Yeah.
Because
we're going to flip that later.
As a gay audience member, I'm often like, oh, there's a gay character, fun, I'm excited. And then nothing happens
Yeah.
with that gay character.
Right.
They don't have anyone of romantic interest. They don't have a crush, or they don't kiss anyone, or they don't do anything gay. And I'm like, well, that's a waste. Like, they could have been whatever. I don't like Dumbledore after the fact. I'm like, okay, well, let me see it. Let's give us something actually real,
and not just fade out into sparkles.
Yeah, even Call Me by Your Name, where every
God.
sex scene, except for the one with the woman.
Right, the one with the woman has very explicit sex. Every other sex scene, pan out the window.
Yeah, I don't want to.
And that's a story about gay people.
That's a gay movie.
That is a
That's for
gay movie.
people. You thought?
Oh, infuriating.
They didn't leave any of it for the gay people.
So what I'm taking from this is Dix the Musical better than Call Me by Your Name.
Yeah,
That's what I think. I actually kind of do a little bit. Which is weird.
So different.
It is very different. But there's also, I guess, a question, despite all of these problems that we have.
Did you say problems or just questions?
Questions, I guess, because that's really, I don't know if they're problems, but do you feel like this movie knows what it is?
Yeah, I do.
It did something on purpose. I
know what it is.
Yeah, I don't know. I know that I don't know.
I'm not sure I left being like, I get it.
I didn't get it. I'm not sure I'm supposed to, but I feel like it.
But almost
it
in
was
a way,
on purpose.
Yeah, it was absolutely on purpose. I mean, it was clear that they were like more absurd, more ridiculous. We know what we are. We know what this story is. We know that it's not realism. That's very clear.
Yeah.
And having moments grounded in realism doesn't mean the movie should be realism, or have even moments that are, I just like, there's a moment at the end where one of the actors is like having what looks like kind of a genuine reaction, like to when they find out that the parents aren't going to get married.
Yeah, he's like actually crying.
He's actually having a moment, and the other one
isn't
really like, it's kind of like still playing like the silly voice and the silly, like the silly isms. And I'm like, I could see, like, that's a moment of comedy where I'm like, it would have been funny if you guys really, really cared.
Really cared. I want you both to be so angry, for real angry, that this didn't work. This stupid plan that was never, ever actually going to work. It didn't work, and you are so mad.
I kind of wish that would have happened even in that first song where they're like, no one understands me, but me, but you, but we.
Right.
Which I thought could have been a great song.
Yeah. It's just always being played as a joke.
A little bit. And I was sitting there being like, if they just gave me a dose more, like,
genuine
gravitas.
Yeah, gravitas for sure. Earnestness a little bit.
Then I would really buy into the absurdity of it. That's kind of the missed opportunity, because I want it to still be as absurd, but it can't be as absurd if we're not seeing what it's up against.
Right.
To be
absurdity doesn't mean it's all a joke. Even in absurd worlds in art, the stakes are real.
Yeah.
And when you undercut that, it undercuts the absurdity.
You have to recognize that it's a clock for that melted clock to have any sort of impact.
Right.
If we're talking about surrealism,
it's not a joke clock. It's a clock. It's just melted.
It's a clock. It's melted.
Yeah.
It needs to start with reality. It needs to have that base, or like we don't have that reaction to just a pile of slime on the ground.
Right.
We don't know. There's nothing based in reality. But if we understand the concept of time and we see a real image of a clock and then it's adjusted from there, then we have the emotional reaction we can have to art.
Right. Yeah. So that begs the question, does the movie succeed? I guess, what is it trying to do, and does it succeed?
Yes. I don't know what it's trying to do. I guess it seems like a bit of fun. And again, if it's like bigger than tell a perfect story, which it's not telling a perfect
story.
Linear story.
Yeah.
It uses, again, Parent Trap as a device.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily, it's not the story,
Yeah.
I would say. In terms of bringing some live energy, bringing some fun, bringing some comedy, bringing some kind of very overly gay jokes and imagery to the screen.
Yeah.
There's something that is resonating as successful for me.
Yeah, I think me too. It's like they, despite there being, the issues that we have with the comedy, or at least that I have with like them not being quite serious enough for the absurdity, etc. Looking at it, as you've pointed out, from kind of like that wider view where we've got this, it's A24 and they're the one studio that was like, we'll pay people. We'll pay people. We agree with your terms. And so then they're the only people that can make movies. And for these two guys to slip in with the opportunity, and deliver something so silly with such huge names, huge,
who were, all of them game.
And everyone was just like, they really were down, and it ends up being this really, success.
Honestly, the actor buy-in, that does a ton.
Yeah. We got Nathan Lane and Megan Mullally to come do our weird ass movie that I cannot believe is happening.
That Megan Thee Stallion took it seriously.
Yes.
Walked in the room and was like,
let's do it.
Done. And I honestly think she's so brilliant in it.
Yeah.
And in all the ways that she should be. She understands the improv, understands the jokes, but understands but really she buys that character.
Yeah.
She plays it dead ass serious.
Yeah. Oh man. What a movie that was. I don't know if I'll see it again. Probably. I'll probably watch it again.
Yeah. It feels like a movie that we would
need to.
I would want to do like a watch along in costume. That's like that does seem like one that I could do that too.
Yeah. Oh man, would I come like I would be a sewer boy, man.
Oh my God.
It's so
close
gross
enough already.
Hey, let's move on to superlatives.
Okay. Oscar moment.
Yeah, Oscar moment.
Okay, Oscar moment. Can I just give it to Megan Thee Stallion?
Yeah, you could.
When Megan Thee Stallion said Scrooge motherfucking McDuck, her rap, she said lots of stupid words, and there was honestly like that song was pretty like gratuitously like, graphic and they talk about dicks and cocks and it's so it's where I bought everything the most. I was like, I'm in right at this moment.
Yeah. It kind of encapsulated the whole movie in that moment.
Yeah. It felt like everything coming together.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can buy in. It's the first time. Okay, I'll let you finish. I'll let you go.
All right, my Oscar, it's Megan Mullally's costumes.
Costumes.
All her costumes were absurd, and she's got like this bedazzled electric wheelchair, and all of her like hair pieces and wackadoo like dresses. It was a very
like that kind of absurdity.
Yeah,
it's like that advanced style thing that I love so much, where it's like
just random pieces of cloth.
You've been collecting things that just you love, and when you get to a certain age, you're like, I'm wearing all of it together. Like, kind of.
That's very much what it feels like. A lot of feathers, a lot of different textures and colors. And
I am into. You're not worried about like the shape of your body as much as just being like feeling like your self is like amazing and cool and cultivated.
You can really, it was beautiful. I mean, generally the costuming, but especially Megan's costumes.
Honestly, Nathan Lane's.
I like Nathan Lane's too. So there's like, especially all of these, like Megan Thee Stallion, Nathan Lane, Megan Mullally, that costuming. You know who they are with the costumes. It's like a really, really good costuming job.
The costuming was pretty good.
To illustrate who the characters are.
They make them very, very clear.
Yeah.
Even with the moments where they're like, these are cheap wigs.
Yes. Oh
And,
my God,
like,
the
even
cheap wigs.
that,
Oh my God.
To that extent, I don't know if you'd call that costumes. Depends
Your hair
on,
doesn't
depends
usually
on the,
look so fake and shitty.
The wigs were so funny though.
They're so funny. Oh my God.
Bad wigs are funny.
Bad wigs are so funny. All right. Unearned moment.
Okay, this is something else I wanted to ask you about.
Okay.
Like in Emperor's New Groove, if they've set up that this is absurdist outside reality, is there such thing as having to earn the moments?
Interesting. It depends, I think probably. Yeah, I think there is. And it has more to do with, despite there being absurdism, there are still setups and payoffs.
Okay.
And that, like, that's just like a action reaction bit. And
Right.
even if it's like, whoa, we explicitly don't pay off this thing, that can be its own, payoff in a sense, very like Chekhov's gun. But, there's just more leeway. The things that you might be looking at that are unearned or earned are different.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that's probably where I would land on that. I think you do still need to earn something. Because I think that
makes sense.
That would be where I'd probably go with it, where it's the song that they sing where they're like, I'm the person that knows me. I think that would be my unearned moment because you don't have the seriousness in it. You don't establish how the stakes are real.
Right.
With kind of that jokiness that they have. I want it to be genuine.
Right.
And the words are stupid. It's going to be funny because the words are stupid.
Yes. I mean, that's one of my favorite things. If you're writing stupid things, like, just do it serious and it'll be funny.
Like, what's her name? Who does the video? What are they called?
Rania.
Yes. Oh man, very silly video where she writes just like I just wrote the song and it's my best lyrics and so just be kind and it's just absurd.
It's my favorite.
Sounds
I've
and it's
watched
so
it like
funny.
maybe 1,000,000 times. That video. We'll add that because
oh man, it's very funny
because that is
it surprised me.
So very good.
But there's something to that where it's I want you to ground it.
Yeah.
And because it's not grounded, it's unearned to me.
That's fair. My unearned moment is because I think it was more than I got out of it, is when Bowen Yang also played the waiter.
Oh, yeah. I think probably, yeah.
Right, because I think in the end it was supposed to be like a...
God is
called? What's that called?
The Deus Ex Machina thing, sort of, whereas like he's the hand of God is here.
Right. I think that's what it is, but there's not enough like.
It was not clear to me that was the same person. And
right. Is he just playing?
He had like a few more lines he needed to do, or
right. Which is like also absurd that the person playing God is just like also having to play a waiter. There's like something absurd, and I'm like,
something very sketchy about it.
Right.
You have like the person playing all the bit parts, or like going and just putting on a stupid wig, and they're like, now I'm the waiter, and they take the wig off, and now I'm God,
but they
and
also
they take the wig
don't do
off.
it enough where it's like he's not showing up lots of different places. Because I've seen that happen before.
Yeah,
and that works.
And
but
honestly,
I do think that like him being there as God, as
that
the
would have
waiter,
worked.
It could have. And there's something not quite set up. So I feel like if there was just like, I mean, it's also so absurd. There could be a take to the camera, like a wink.
Yeah. Or just like don't even put him in a different costume. Just have him be costumed like God. And it's like,
only God could have gotten us together. Wink.
Wink.
Like,
yeah,
like that
something.
kind of like literally like it could be big and broad like that as a way to clue us in. If that's what they're doing,
right,
obviously.
But it was unclear what they were actually doing.
Right. And if it's not, there are ways to like make it more fun and to really play up, because they got to use Bowen Yang, who's playing God throughout this movie.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it feels just feels unearned. It feels like I'm not sure exactly what they were going for, and what I think that they were going for.
Yeah.
I wish there was more.
Heard. Yeah. Most absurd moment.
Oh, come on. I mean, probably when the vagina flies out and eats the man.
Oh my God. Eats the man's face. Yeah, that's probably the silliest. I think I would have to just put that under Nathan Lane eating and spitting bolognas.
I mean, I was
just
surprised.
because
like that really should be that. Like gets a special.
It has to have its
that
own special
moment
thing.
Is so ridiculous that I'm like, that moment again is another moment where I'm like, this is the movie.
Yeah. Yes, that's the
Sewer
movie.
Boys. Nathan Lane spitting ham into these puppets' mouths is perfection.
I
don't know why. I don't
get it. But
I'd
it's
watch
perfect.
it for another 10 minutes. I don't know why.
It's so stupid and he does it for so long. Oh my God. Okay, so I was just then if that gets its special
It
thing,
needs a special Oscar.
then it's like
special
when
superlative.
despite knowing basically that the two brothers are going to end up stooping in the end.
I don't know that. That's like that's a hope because
well,
I guess
I think I assumed that was going to happen like when watching, right?
Yes, that's my point is that is often a hope that some of like the homoerotic undertones come to fruition.
Yeah, I guess
As a gay person, I sometimes want to see.
Yes,
so many movies give you homoerotic undertones. I mean, we see it all the freaking time, and they almost never pay off.
Yes, I'm saying that is something that by the time they are in bed and about to do it, I know what's going to happen. Like by the time we got to that part in the movie, I was like, oh, they're going to do it.
I guess even then I'm like, how far are they going to push it was my question.
And so my most absurd moment then is not that they just started like making out and doing it, but the spitting, that they each spit at each other like that. I was
talk about like
scandalized.
A call me by your name moment.
Truly.
Like this was like, I was like, what?
What is
it's like pulling out a peach and you're like, what is happening?
What is happening right
this?
now? Yeah, it was
like
weird.
Which I just like love that that is almost grounded in reality.
Yeah.
That's why there's something so
that was a moment that was like so real about like one spits in the other's face and the other one spits in his mouth. I was like, oh my God. Oh my God.
You can tell they're trying so hard to be serious.
I know. It's like, we have to do this serious.
And I love that. And
it's
they do
so freaking weird.
Dead serious.
And that really shocked me. That was the most absurd moment for me. I was like, oh man. And the only reason why it wouldn't be the vagina is because
wait a minute, is this not sex? It was like I was like, I don't know what's happening.
I don't know what's happening. Yeah. Because if they had just started doing like the raunchy sex bit that they did after that, that would have been obvious.
Right.
But it's like starting with that spitting. I was like, oh, we've gone to a different place now. We're in a different place.
Yeah.
We're in a more serious place, as you say. It's much more grounded, more. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, again, or like Brokeback Mountain in the tent.
Yeah.
Like there's these moments where like, this is almost like too real.
It's too real. Yeah. And I think I would only put that above the flying vagina that eats a face because
it's absurd within the world of absurdism.
It's absurd, right?
I think that's kind of the...
Yeah, it's just that it is computer generated. That's the only thing. It's like it's not a puppet anymore. And I was like, no,
they have puppets, and we're talking about an anti-AI movie, so
that's true.
We want less.
We want fewer CGI vaginas, more
sewer boy puppets.
Sewer boy puppets, yeah.
More little tiny mouths.
And it's fun, like seeing the little clips of the outtakes with the sewer boys because you see like I was wondering how they were controlling them, and there's like green sticks that control them that were green screened out. I was like, that's good. Wow,
it's fun.
That was so cool.
They let you in at the end on some of the makings of which it adds to it.
It added so much. It's part of the movie. So again, watch that.
Can we? I know we're on superlatives, but can we quick talk about the wedding scene, which lives
a little outside the movie?
Outside of the movie again, which I'm like, I kind of love that they do it, and that it keeps. It's one of those moments where I'm like, is this still going? Like it's almost like Mommy Dearest. You're like, the movie already ended. Why are we doing all the, like, there's still more ridiculous things that are happening.
Yeah.
Which I think it's part of why Mommy Dearest feels like a cult movie and doesn't feel quite like a sit down serious Oscar movie.
Right.
Because it like feels.
There's the false endings. It feels comically.
Maybe that, like, I mean, you talked about it with your book in a different way where it feels, but doesn't feel like it's like a cliffhanger. It feels like we ended the serious part and we're not done, which means the serious part was not the thing.
Right.
It's showing you that this is, again, bigger than.
This is bigger than the story of the movie. Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, it's
absurd.
That it's like, it's not about them being dicks, which is funny. That's the name of the movie. Yeah. Because it does have a little bit that kind of like preachiness about it, where it's like God is gay and he's going to tell all of these holy people who are like all up in arms with this incestuous marriage, that they're like, well, you're no better. And I love the last message of like, love is disgusting and all love is love. You know?
All love is gross and all love is love.
Like all love is love and all love is gross. Yeah, and I think
that's a ridiculous lesson to take away from it.
That's not a real lesson, but it kind of is. But
I'm not rooting for an incestuous marriage. Like,
what is happening?
Clearly, I'm not.
Yeah.
I love the device of using something like that where it's ridiculous. I mean, this like two twins marrying each other. Yeah. It's beyond like a gay marriage.
Yeah.
Where it's like, gay people aren't like woohoo incest, except for like maybe in fantasies. Like there's plenty of like incest fantasies in the gay world, but there's something like, because of the absurdity of it and that it lives in a fantasy realm, and it's clear that these two guys are not
brothers, right?
Nor straight, nor anything.
Yeah.
So part of it, like, it lets you get closer, but it lets you. It makes it. It takes that preachy. It cuts the preachiness.
Yeah. Yeah. It is at the same time as it is making fun of and turning the traditional preachiness we see in the world about these, deviants on its head. It's also making fun of the preachiness itself, where it's like, also, I'm taking the piss out of myself.
Yeah.
We are taking the piss out of ourselves.
Just the moment where God's like, I am men, I am women, I am this, I am that, I am everything. I am straight, I am gay. And they're like, wait, you're gay? He's like, yeah, among other things. You heard it. He's gay.
Yeah.
And Bone's like,
God is gay.
And there's a whole song about it.
Yeah. And he's like, but that's not what the point
really
was.
What I was trying to say.
Yeah.
All right, God's gay. Like, and he jumps in. There's something really well crafted about that piece of it. That, again, those moments where it keys you into the absurdism.
Yeah. And it's like its own little sketch, right? It's its own little sketch that's loosely tied to this world. And what a good idea. It's like that classic, using the classic wedding to indicate that this is to end our story. We've got a comedy. We're going to end with a wedding, even though it's like kind of unrelated to anything else that's happening. Yeah, for real. It's so, it feels as arbitrary as a lot of Shakespeare weddings do.
Shakespeare weddings
it's just
so arbitrary.
The indication of it is the end of the story.
Yeah.
And this was a comedy, so there's going to be a wedding.
Use a live theater trope to signify an ending and just be comedic, because that's what it is.
Yeah. As arbitrary, 100%.
I feel like I'm walking away liking this more than I did coming in. Not that I didn't like it. That's the other thing. Is if you had asked me, so I'll ask you.
Yeah.
Do you like it?
I think I will like it after I watch it again. Especially after this conversation.
I feel you.
You know, especially after this conversation, I'm like, yeah, there's something.
That's how I felt about that.
And I was going to say that too. Is there's something like really absurd and about kind of like something that's like bigger than the movie.
Like
those little.
Though. That's
that was hyperrealism. It is absurd spectrum. Because of how real it is.
It's like watching it's like photorealism where you're like, ooh, it's hard to watch.
It's so weird.
Kind of.
Yeah, and but there's the parts are grander than the whole. Mm-hmm. In a similar way that I imagine that this is going to feel that way. This is going to be a thing where we're going to look at the individual bits and pieces of this and be like, that is a quotable moment, right? That is a thing to laugh about. Remember that moment. And it's not related to like the movie and how it's like, oh, it's just such a good like cohesive moment about this character's development. Right. It's like he was spitting baloney. Like that's so insane. And there's probably going to be lines that after we watch it a few more times, which I imagine is probably going to happen as we start doing these costume parties or like drinking games or with it or whatever, like watch parties with it, that we're going to be repeating.
Also another one that I'm like, you haven't seen that? Okay, let's
we got to watch it because there's so much in it that I can't actually give you many of the lines that they had, and there are some gems in there that I'm like, that's going to be one that is going to come up again.
Yep.
So right now, I know leaving, I was like, I don't know what the fuck that was. But after talking about it, and that's kind of the point, right? That's kind of, that's what I like about that.
I want more of that generally. Yeah. Being like, I'm not sure. I have to kind of sit with it.
Yeah. And I think that's probably where I'm at. I need to sit with it to really actually like it, but I think I will.
Okay.
I think I'm going to like this one.
I think I'm going to like it here.
Are we good? Are we good? Are we good?
Yeah.
We're good?
Wrap it up. We're done with, because we were at superlatives. Anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you all so much for joining us for this episode about Dix the Musical. We hope that you'll come back and see us again soon. Follow us on all of the social medias. My name is Pavi Proczko. And remember, don't ever let your sewer boys go hungry.
And I'm Colin Funk. And remember, your vagina can fall off, but it might save the day.
Oh my God. Okay, bye.
Goodbye. I don't know.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Then a Moment, a Pavitas production project, hosted by Colin Funk and Pavi Proczko. This podcast is produced by Chicago Podcast Studio. Our opening cartoon was created by Gloriu, and our theme song was composed by me, Pavi Proczko. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite listening platform. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Then a Moment Pod, all one word, for updates on new episodes and behind-the-scenes content. If you have any feedback, comments, concerns, or kudos, you can email us at thenamomentpod@gmail.com. Please rate and review us wherever you can. It would help us out a bunch. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.